Hello, everyone. This is Z. Welcome to another episode of my podcast. And today I have a very special and good friend of mine, Jason Schultz, who plays in very different, too many bands to count off. Welcome, Jason. How are you do?
Good, Z. Thanks for having me, man. Good to talk with you. It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a while. And first of all, you tell me how many bands you play in, man.
Oh yeah. So I mean, honestly, yeah, three right now.
Okay.
So yeah, it keeps me busy, right? But it's all good stuff. It's fun.
So you have been touring with the band Wraith.
Yep.
Okay, so it's a trash metal, y-
Hmm.
you know, a very raw type of
Yeah.
sound and fast to blast beats and type of stuff,
Yeah,
right?
very aggressive, you know. I always say it's very abrasive sort of music, you know, but it's fun. I mean, it's cool. Like Wraith, it definitely that takes me back to what got me into music in the first place.
Hmm.
Obviously, like we're very much into progressive rock and progressive metal bands and things, and that's kind of where my love lies, right? That's where my heart is a
Hmm.
lot of the time. But really, what got me into music in the first place was punk rock and Slayer and Megadeth, your shirt. I mean, that was all like the big influences early on, right? So it's cool for me to have an outlet in Wraith to be able to express some of that and the aggression and 3 minute long songs, just right to the point, going right for the jugular. So it's a lot of fun too, right? Because the energy I think you get at a show, especially, is a little different than when you're performing a 15-minute long epic, right? Side
Yeah.
long epic or whatever. Not that I necessarily could say I love one over the other, but it's cool. It's definitely a cool outlet to have. So I'm
So
thankful.
how did you find those guys in Wraith? Like,
Yeah. So it's interesting. So everyone in all my bands, right? All three of my bands, we're all friends from Northwest Indiana. Like
mm-hmm.
we went to high school together, or we are just kind of the remnants of the music scene out here, right? It's like we were all the guys that continued to play music as we got
Hmm.
older. I think everyone's story, they typically started in like middle school when we were all 12 years old or whatever. We all received our first guitars or basses or drum kits or whatever and got into music, kind of found it our own ways. And then we're just kind of the guys that kept on. So if I look at the Wraith guys, I've known all of them for 20 years.
Oh, that
Yeah,
that's awesome.
yeah, we go
So
way back.
Wraith is signed to a label as well, I believe.
Yeah, yeah. So it was earlier this year we announced that we signed with Prosthetic Records.
That's a
So
good label, I think, for the
Yeah,
metal
prosthetics really
music. Yeah.
cool. They've got a kind of a storied history of promoting a lot of metal bands that, in a lot of cases, would go on to do great things. You got Lamb of God was a prosthetic band
Hmm.
when they started out. Gojira was a prosthetic band when they
Wow.
started out, which was awesome. But they've been really great and really supportive in just kind of helping us kind of gain that additional platform and reach out to different folks that maybe wouldn't have heard the band or seen the band otherwise. It was really cool for me, like when we put out our last record, Fueled by Fear, back in June,
Hmm.
to see on social media people posting like walking into a record shop in Europe and being able to buy a copy of the album on vinyl or buy a CD, or this is really cool. I felt like that partnership kind of opened us up to a whole new audience, right? And just got the music out to more people, made it more readily available instead of us having to sell, and package CDs off of our Bandcamp, which we still do anyway, right? It's all part of it, that. But
Yeah.
yeah, it was just really cool. And they expressed interest in working with us, and it sounded great, and it has been a great partnership so far. So.
That's awesome. I mean, definitely like heavy hitters on the label used to be, and now you guys are starting. So looking forward to what you guys do. So any other, I mean, talking about the last record you did with them, are you playing just guitars with them or part of the songwriting process as well? Or
Yeah, yeah. So with Wraith, that was kind of the thing, right? So like when I first joined the band, or I started playing in the band, it was in 2018. And one of my other projects, which I'm sure we'll talk about, Mind's Horizon,
yeah.
back in the day, we were on a little bit of guess you could say a hiatus. Like that band never fully went away, but we had some members that moved away, and we weren't really a live band anymore, so it was kind of hard. We had a backlog of material we were working on and everything, and I really wanted to play live. I just really missed the stage because I didn't really have any opportunities to play. So it was kind of fortunate. It timed out to where the Wraith guys at that point, it was my other three bandmates. It was Matt, who's the vocalist and rhythm guitarist, Chris, the bassist, and then Mike, the drummer. They reached out to me to do some guest solos for a
Hmm.
record. And it was the record. Which one was it? It was Heed the Warning, which was the second album. And they asked if I would do a guest solo on a track, and I kind of jumped at it. I was like, "Yeah, this would be awesome, right?" And
Hmm.
I recorded the album, went over there a day, kind of did a DIY recording on that one, and it was cool. Recorded a solo I was really proud of. And then the guys asked me, "Hey, so we want to do a release show for this. We're gonna play the song. Would you play the song with us?
Hmm.
Play the show, learn the songs, whatever." Oh yeah, sounds like fun. It's great. It'd been a while since I played a show. I jumped at the opportunity, and I never really left after that point. It was like, as I think we did a split or an EP after that. I did solos on it. I played every live show after that since 2018, and then come 2020, the guys asked me like, "Hey, you wanna join?" Because I started producing ideas. I was like, "Hey, I got some riffs. I have some songs. What do you guys think?"
Hmm.
And it seemed like it gelled really well. So in 2020, I joined officially as a
Hmm.
full-time member and then started contributing writing. So the cool thing with that band is all four guys write.
Hmm.
So, if you look at the last couple records we did, the last couple smaller releases, splits, EPs, that sort of thing, it's all a combination really of everyone's ideas. So, full-fledged member in that band, we all sit down and kind of write the final arrangement of the song together. Play lead guitar, obviously, in
Hmm.
that band. Matt does some leads, but I kind of do, the lion's share of the leads.
Hmm.
But also play rhythm guitar. We kind of split that on the recordings pretty evenly, and backing vocals and that sort of thing. So yeah, it's definitely kind of all encompassing, but like you said, it's a lot of fun.
Oh, that's awesome. So, talking about are you guys working on something new material, or like what's for the future with
Yeah,
Wraith?
so with Wraith, it was kind of a whirlwind year. We put the record out in June. We had done some shows and things before that, and just some one-off, like we call them weekend warrior things, right? Where
Mm.
we'll leave Friday after work and rent a van or something, and we play the Friday night show somewhere, Saturday night show, maybe Sunday, come back, and then by Monday we're all back home or we're back at work or whatever we got to do. But we did it was actually a really cool experience. We did a US tour in July. We went out with
Mm.
Midnight, Exciter, and a band called Hell Witch. They're kind of like a classic like
Mm.
death metal band from Florida. And we went coast to coast, and we were out for 3 weeks. And it was a great experience. A lot of awesome shows, lots of great sold out shows. Got to actually go to places I'd never been before. I'd never been to New York. We got to go to New York City,
Yeah.
Boston, Albuquerque, San Diego, San Francisco. I mean, we were all over. It was really cool.
Hmm.
So it was like when we got back from that, we took a little bit of a break, and then now we're kind of talking about next year. We've got some huge stuff coming up next year. It hasn't been announced yet, but
Hmm.
it'll take us to a lot of places we haven't been yet, which is really cool. And then yeah, there's already some song ideas kind of kicking around for that band. So we'll see if we end up doing like an EP or something, or if that becomes the next record. But yeah, I
Hmm.
could probably see with that too, right? It's a little different when you're writing a 30-minute long record full of 3-minute songs.
Yeah.
I'm almost out of my element with that because I'm used to writing an 80-minute long record with 15-minute long songs, right? You know that.
Yeah.
So it's almost like you wind up with too much material, and we're cutting stuff to get it down to 35 minutes, right? Because you don't want to have an hour long album full of 3-minute long songs. That's like the worst
Yeah.
thing you can imagine. So yeah, we'll always be busy with it. So we'll see what next year holds, but there's a lot of cool stuff in the works. So.
That's awesome. So, talking about your gear, what you are using these days for live shows, or like what guitars or like amps
Yeah.
you are currently using?
Yeah, so I've always been just kind of a gear hound guy, collector. I know you are too, right? I always see, when you post pictures on social media and stuff, and you got a lot of cool guitars and
Yeah.
good taste in that stuff, right? Which is awesome. So I've kind of gravitated towards now a main rig, I guess you could say. So about I want to say, let's see, it was 2024 now, right? So probably about 2021, I reached out and was able to get an endorsement with Angle
Hmm.
amplifiers.
That's a
So I
really
have
good.
quite a few, and that's the funny thing is with the endorsement, I think I've only bought one, and prior to that, I bought like four just on my own, whether used or Guitar Center used, just like find them because I love the way they sound. The
Yeah.
one I always say was like my holy grail moment was when I got the Engel Savage. When I
Oh,
played out
yeah.
of that, that to me
That's a beast, you
as a
know.
metal amp, yeah, right. I had seen like Ola England's videos back in the day on YouTube and just like how aggressive and percussive that amp was. It just sounded great for that
Mm,
real heavy, dry kind of metal tone that tracks really fast. That's kind of what I like on rhythm playing, right?
hmm
So I got the Savage. I bought a Steve Morse. I bought a Artist Edition, an Iron Ball. So I've had, quite a few, and I've had some other amps too that weren't Engels that I've since sold just to get more Engels because I'm kind of I'm chasing the tones now, right? And I want to have them all. It's like a Pokemon thing, right? Catch them all. Um, but the main ones I've been using really have been that artist edition and then my Steve Morse. And I kind of
hmm
fell in love recently and fell re in love with that Steve Morse amp because
hmm
I'd never really used the second channel on that amp. I'd always messed around with that third channel, which is like the crazy one with all the mid settings and all that stuff. And I was intimidated by it. So I never really played that amp a ton. I played it a lot with Mind's Horizon back in the day, but I didn't really use it for Idol Throne or Wraith. And I ended up my artist had a tube down, and I had some gigs coming up, so I brought the Morse out, excuse me, as a backup, and I dialed in that second channel, and it just sounds mean. It's got this like Marshall JCM hot rodded thing going on, and I never knew that amp could do that sound. So I've been
Oh,
using that one a lot, and that's a killer sound. But
yeah.
same thing, use those cabs too. And then on the guitar front, I got hooked up a few years ago with Comparison. So
hmm
I also have an endorsement with them, and I've absolutely loved those guitars. I've
Yeah.
got the MJR, the Michael Romeo model,
hmm
the white one. I love that guitar. That's like a bury me with it one. I play that a ton in Idol Throne. For Wraith, I've got the JSM, which is the Joel Strotzel from Killswitch Engage. It's his model.
hmm
Um, with the pick guard, I love the look of that guitar. It's great. That's kind of like the classic one usually most Wraith people would associate me with, right? Because I played
Yeah.
that guitar for years live, recorded a bunch of albums with it too. But
hmm
yeah, I've since kind of found myself in situations where I've purchased quite a few of those. I've got a seven string which I need to get set up. It's really cool.
hmm
Probably use that soon on some Idle Throne stuff. But they're just great guitars, man. They play
Yeah.
awesome. I'm a big like super strat guy. So 24 fret, Fender scale, two humbuckers.
Yeah.
That's really for me what I gravitate towards is kind of that classic sound, but that's the playability that, feels great. And I've got a ton of other guitars. I've got PRSs, I have Surs, I've got, the Ibanez Prestige Music Mans that I still have, but I
hmm
just gravitate towards those comparisons, man. They just play great.
Yeah, that's awesome. So are you like carrying like 4x12 cabinets or what?
Yeah, so I got a 4x12 and then I've got a couple 212s and I'll just
hmm
kind of rotate depending on the size of the venue. We played some real small places where it's like the 4x12 is a total ego thing. If you're
Yeah.
bringing it out, it's like,
Yeah.
nah, I'm
Yeah.
good, So yeah, if a 212 will
So
work, I'll use a 212
have you
happily.
explored digital like amp modelers and stuff like that? Or
Yeah, yeah. So I have a Kemper, and I use the
mm,
Kemper kind of as my practice amp. It's actually right next to me right now as I'm talking to
hmm
you. I'm kind of in my little office writing room at home. But I love the Kemper. It's interesting. Everyone that is a friend of mine, they all have a different preference on a digital kind of solution or workstation, right? So it's like I have the Kemper. My other guitarist in Idle Throne, Martin, uses Axe FX. He's got a
hmm
Axe FX 3 and an FM3.
hmm
Kyle, who is now playing bass in Idle Throne, but he was also my co-guitarist and kind of co-partner in Mind's Horizon.
Yeah.
He's got the Quad Cortex. Everyone's got something, right? We all
Yeah.
kind of explore those ecosystems. And what I really like about them is we use them to record the record. So like we'll record like the last Wraith record we did with the Kemper. We did DIs and then
Mm-hmm.
we reamped everything after the fact with our gear. So we were able to record at 1 in the morning and
hmm
at home, and it wasn't an
Yeah,
issue.
that's the convenient part with the amp
Yeah.
modelers. I mean, I'm like 50-50 on it. But I'm mostly a amp guy myself. I
Yeah.
don't like digital. I bought a XFX, didn't gel with it, and then sold it.
Yeah.
Then the system I kind of gelled with is like a synergy system
Yeah,
from
yeah,
so that they has like little modules that you can insert into it, and I like that more responsive to my playing, whatever. I feel
yeah.
more
I
connected to it.
definitely agree with you.
Yeah, and I have like a small Seymour Duncan power amp, which I can, use the cabinet with it as well. So,
Yeah.
I can
Well,
get a live feeling as well. So,
yeah, it's interesting, right? Like I'm not anti any of that technology. I think they're all tools, and it's cool. Like I love my Kemper. It's one of the best gear purchases I ever made because it gives me all the flexibility. Like I can get my Savage sound, or I can get, one of my favorite profiles that I use is a Wizard Metal
hmm
2. And Wizards are like $6,000 heads, right? Like that's never a head. If I had 6 grand to buy music gear with, I'm not going to just buy that head, right? I could buy 3 guitars for that. I could buy
yeah,
two half stacks, whatever. So it's fun because you can play with it, and download all these different profiles and mess around. And some are better than others, right? But I love
yeah.
the flexibility of it. And then, talking live, you said you're Seymour Duncan, the power stage. So my other guitarist, Martin, which I don't know, did Fireguard ever play with Farwatch back in the
Uh,
day?
no, no, we
Okay,
didn't.
so that
Yeah.
was his band at the time. I had Mind's Horizon and Martin had Farwatch.
Ah,
And it was, very kind of Dream Theater influence, kind of progressive rock,
yeah.
female fronted vocals. But he has a Mark V, and that's
hmm
kind of his like amp, right, with a 212. And I would always run my Engels with my 212 Mesa, and that
hmm
was kind of our main thing. And
hmm
recently he switched over to playing with his FM3 with the
hmm
Seymour Duncan Power Stage. He's got the
hmm
200-watt one, and he's been using that live. And he'll have the cab for stage volume, and then he'll just run it through the wedge or whatever because we're not doing in-ears yet, but eventually we're working
Yeah.
towards that. And it sounds great. His patches. He's kind of got patches that are a riff on his Mark V sound. They
hmm
sound great. It's like the cleans are phenomenal with all the effects he's got built in and everything. So it's a really cool technology, and it's just like anything else. It's a tool. I prefer
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
but if I was ever in a position where they're like, hey, we played a fly gig. It was cool in Salt Lake City. This was a few years ago, and the
hmm
guitarist in the band, one of the bands that was opening up, had a Kemper. So I was able to just put all my tones on a flash drive. I had my pedal board, my guitar. I got there, I plugged the flash drive into the back of his Kemper. I had my 6505 tone that I was using at the time for Wraith, and it was like,
Yeah.
cool, it's there. So
Yeah.
the convenience factor is cool. I know a lot of bands
Yeah,
do that,
I
and
mean, I recently bought a small pedal of Tonex, which IK Multimedia Tonex.
Mhm.
It's a similar to like amp modeler type of thing.
Yeah,
I mean, I found it pretty cool. It works as audio interface as well, so I can just plug that thing in my laptop and record ideas and stuff.
yeah.
So yeah, I mean that's awesome. So talking about your pedal board for the live situation, what's that? I mean, pedals are you using currently?
Yeah, so it's interesting with me, right? Like I've never been a huge pedal guy. I have a bunch of pedals. I have 2 boards that I built. I've got a massive board that I always said was like my prog rock board, my like Dream Theater board. And then I've got the current board I'm using, and it's interesting. The current board, I've used it now across both of my like live bands.
hmm
It's pretty simple, man. I've got, I run the effects loop. I've got it's one of those Earth Shaker devices. It's the Dispatch Master. It's like the
hmm
combination delay and reverb.
hmm
And I use that for as just kind of a clean and lead sort of sound, right? Just to give it a little bit more of that lushness and fullness.
hmm
But honestly, I have a tuner. I got a Korg Pitch Black tuner. I've got a TC Electronic Spark Booster as a clean boost,
Yeah.
which a few of the amps I use need, a few of them don't. The Savage and the Morse do not need to be boosted at all, but
hmm
the Artist benefits from it a little bit. And I like that it's really transparent, so you keep the low end. One of the
hmm
things with Engels, if you try to boost them, a lot of times it sounds worse because of the way the compression kind of hits the preamp. It's like it takes something away from it, right? So it's like
Yeah.
I like that TC pedal because it maintains that, or it retains
hmm
the character of the amp. You don't lose that. But then really apart from that, I've got one of those little Dunlop mini wahs because the
hmm
board I use it's one of those small pedal train ones. It's like that big
Yeah.
with power supply, and it's literally like 5 pedals. I think it's in the loop. I've got that the ISP, the decimator G string that you run with the loop. I've
Yeah.
got that, and then the only thing I really have in the loop is just the the Earthshaker, and
Mm-hmm.
that's the only time effect I have on there. And pretty much everything else is just either, yeah, noise gate, tuner, wah. Pretty simple. I
Yeah.
don't really like a lot of effects. I was very much of the mind when I came up and started learning to play.
Mm-hmm.
It was just me plugged in to the amp, and that's really what I developed my technique around, right? So it was like I didn't have a lot of effects to kind of color the sound, so I'm kind of used to that really dry sound, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm familiar with the way that it reacts to my playing. So kind
Mm-hmm.
of like that. If there's too much effect going on, I feel like there's like latency or it's weird.
Yeah.
It's like if I'm playing fast picking stuff, like it's not really lining up the way I want it to. That's part of the reason I think I always gravitated towards those really fast amps like the Savage,
Mm-hmm.
where it's really sometimes they can be kind of hard to play. People say they're a little stiff,
Mm-hmm.
but for me, I'm just used to that, and that's kind of the sound I like. So, and it kind of makes it forces you to be better because it doesn't
Yeah.
really hide a lot of mistakes if you're playing stuff like that or
Yeah,
you're
it's
a little
really
more
tough. I
dry.
mean, I have this Mark 5, I think, amp, or 6 it is. 5, I think, yeah. So it's a small 25 watt, but I mean, you have to play clean.
Yeah,
Otherwise,
it kind of like
it
forces
will,
you, right? It's like, oh
yeah,
man, I'm gonna
otherwise it will
Yeah.
expose you.
If
But
I'm gonna bring this out live, like I gotta have my chops together, otherwise
yeah,
it's gonna be a total mess, right?
yeah,
And
with
train wreck.
Marshall, you can get away a little bit.
Yeah, yep. So
So, talking about your other bands, you have Mind Horizon and Idle Throne. What are
yeah.
the difference between these two bands?
Well, it's kind of funny as time goes on, they're more bleeding together. So as we said before, right? So that's how we actually met because I know Mines Horizon played with Fire Garden back in the day, and that was a
Yeah.
really cool show. We had a lot of fun with that one, and I think kicking around kind of that greater Chicago, Northwest Indiana progressive metal rock scene, of which there really aren't too many bands. Let's be real, right?
Yeah.
That was kind of how we came to know of each other. Probably what 10 years ago now, right? Something like
Yeah.
so yeah, that band, as I said, like, we put out our first record Divisions in 2013. We put out our second record Desolation Within in 2016. And then the idea was our third record, Animus Unbound, was going to be kind of like the part two to Desolation Within. Like we wrote all the music for those records at the same
Hmm.
time. So we wrote 160 minutes worth of music. And the whole concept was disc one, which is the one that released, was the real heavy kind of progressive death metal sort of sound, right? It was
Hmm.
went into different directions, but kind of, Opeth meets Between the Buried and Me meets
Yeah.
Behemoth, that was that vibe, right? And then we played a lot of that material. And then the second one was like full blown prog rock. We had very like Rush and Yes and Genesis and just like that whole vibe. And it was clean singing and very little, if any, growling on that second disc.
Hmm.
So right around the time we wanted to do that, it was like I don't want to say the band kind of imploded, but it was like we all maintained the friendships we had, but everyone at that point in time in like about 2016, 2017 just started pursuing other things. It was like
Hmm.
Kyle moved away for a while for school. He moved up to, Chicago for a while, so he was kind of out of the area for me.
Hmm.
And we still get together and work on music, but live shows weren't really a thing. And so, 2016, 2017 really didn't do too much. We kind of messed around with a few different like live lineups and got some musicians to fill in on parts, play drums, those sorts of
Hmm.
things. But weren't really doing much. So that's why, as I said, in 2018, around 2018, I was kind of looking to do something else, right? I wanted to do something where, okay, well, I'm going to play shows again. That was the big thing. So
Hmm.
I met up with Martin from, Farwatch, and he's, guitarist very much cut from a similar cloth as I. We have a lot of the same influences.
Hmm.
Petrucci, Romeo, all the shred guys from the 80s, the shrapnel guys,
Hmm.
Yngwie, Tony McAlpine, Paul Gilbert, all that sort of stuff. Um, and just said, "Hey, you want to jam? Like, hey, you're not really doing anything with your band. I'm not really doing anything with my band. So, like, would you want to jam and we can kind of work on a couple ideas and see where it goes?" And yeah, he gave me a call a few weeks later, and that was the end of 2018. So that
Hmm.
was kind of the formation of Idle Throne, and the whole idea was, let's not do what we've been doing, which is progressive metal. Like, let's
Hmm.
not do that. Let's do something else where I think the idea at the time was he wanted to explore this like US power metal sort of sound.
Hmm.
Bands like Vicious Rumors, I guess what's another big one? like Crimson Glory, that sort of stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
my thing was, well, I want to do something that's like Bay Area thrash metal, like
Mm-hmm.
songs where it's based and rooted in that thrash metal sound, it's a little more aggressive, right? But it's like Forbidden and Testament and Heathen and bands like that,
Mm-hmm.
all kind of by way of like Metallica and that sort of blueprint.
Yeah.
The first
Uh,
four records really,
course,
like I'd probably say
early
Ride
Metallica
Lightning
stuff.
through
Yeah.
Justice, that
Yeah.
sort of thing. So that's kind of where it went. We started writing some songs in that style, filled out the rest of the lineup with members who are our friends. Put out the first record, The Sibylline Age, in 2022 on Stormspell Records, which has been a great kind of distribution label partner we've worked with. So get the physical
Mm-hmm.
CDs and stuff like that. And then earlier this year, we put out our second record, which is called A Clarion Call, kind of along the a similar line. But one of the things we've kind of discovered as time went on is that we're both prog guys at heart, right? So like the music has become more progressive.
Yeah.
And it was one of those things where it's like it didn't start that way. I don't think the intent was ever for Idol Throne to be a progressive metal band, but like we've become a progressive metal band. So at this point, we put the second record out, and there's some longer pieces on there. The title track of the first record, Sibling Age, is like 12 minutes long. That was kind of a
Mm-hmm.
peek into that, right? We had like a 9 minute long instrumental on that record that I'm super proud of. It's still one of my favorite songs I've ever had a hand in
Mm-hmm.
writing, right? But then, after that, it's like we're working on the third record right now, which I think our hope is to get that out like by the end of 2026. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like a full blown, like probably about 70 minutes long. There's a 14-minute long song on it. The ending song is about 10 minutes. There's instrumentals, there's lots of
That's,
instrumental sections and guitar stuff. So it's like we resisted it at first because we're like, no, we've been doing that for so long. Like your band's been doing it, my band's been doing it, but we're in a position where we're really lucky to be playing with some really great musicians.
yeah.
They can do it. So it's like as we've kind of grown together musically and learned everyone's limitations and our strengths and everything, it's like it just informs the material, right? The stuff that we're
Yeah.
writing. And now it's like, yeah, man, like I want to do a 20-minute epic. Like I haven't done that in a long time. I really
Yeah.
want to do it again. And Martin's all aboard too. So it's like, all right. So to hear. Well, it's cool because, one of the big things for me is I think as the I don't want to say get older, right? But as the scene kind of progresses, it's interesting. A lot of the projects, the bands from 10 years ago, it's interesting to see kind of what's still around. And for a while, I was talking to Kyle about it the other day because, as I said, my cohort in Mine's Horizon, it was always kind of the partnership between Kyle and I that kept that band going, right? The
Mm-hmm.
songwriting partnership. And, he was busy with other things. Recently started his family, had his daughter, he's been really kind of busy with that. And he's always been very active in the cover band scene too, right? He did a
Mm-hmm.
lot of that. So that was a lot of his like gigging time and those sorts of things. And we were kind of talking about it the other day, like, we didn't do a lot with Mine's Horizon for a long time, but I still want the unreleased stuff to see the light of day. And it's
Yeah.
cool whenever I see, any of the bands that kind of we palled around with still active. So when you say you're working on Fire Garden music and you want to put it out, that makes me feel good because it's like it always is a bummer when a project is dead, right? Or you
Yeah.
oh yeah, we used to do that. We had a bunch of cool music and a bunch of good times and now we don't do it anymore or it fell apart or whatever. And it's like a lot of bands go that way and it's just part of it, right? But that's like recently Kyle dusted off some of that unreleased Minds Horizon stuff for that second album, that Animus Unbound, because we released
Mm-hmm.
about half of it. We
Mm-hmm.
had that was crazy because it was a suite of 5 songs that made up a 30-minute long epic.
Mm-hmm.
Then it was 2 standalone songs, an instrumental and like an acoustic song, and then it was a
Mm-hmm.
30-minute long epic. And the thing that always killed me is that 30-minute long epic is so cool and no one's ever heard it. It's sitting on a hard drive.
Yeah, I mean
It's
that's so
so cool.
disappointing. With this
Yeah.
TikTok generation. You have to get the attention like in maybe
Yeah.
two seconds. I mean, I don't
Yep.
know, maybe show a naked lady in the front of every video.
Yeah.
I
Well,
don't know.
that's the thing too. It's interesting you said that because I'm curious your thought on it, right? I think there's two sides to that. There's recognizing it and being realistic, right? And knowing like what we do on some degree, when we're doing the progressive stuff, right?
Yeah.
Is inherently anti that. It's against it, right? Because
Yeah,
you need attention span for that. You need the long form, you know. But
yeah,
Dream Theater's out there playing Octavarium, right? And they're doing all the long form stuff that we love, right? And fell in love with.
yeah,
That's what got me into that music. I just loved how cinematic it is and the long songs and just was really having room to breathe in that style.
yeah,
And it's interesting to me because you see a lot of that. Our both our records for Idle Throne have been very well received, but one of the criticisms from people were, "Oh, that song's so long. Why would you write a 12-minute long song?" Or, "Oh,
yeah,
an 8-minute long instrumental track." And I'm thinking in the back of my or an hour long album. Oh, that album should be 30 minutes long. And you think in the back of your head, it's like, well, I'm an album guy, and my
yeah,
favorite albums, Images and Words is an hour long.
yeah,
Paradise Lost is an hour long. Some of those albums are Octavarium is 80 minutes long, and I think
yeah,
it's a great record, and not to mention what 6 Degrees is 43 minutes long, right? And it's
yeah,
one song. So it's
yeah,
like we have that I think appreciation and love for that long form type of songwriting. And
yeah.
so that's a thing I'll never give up. And
Hmm.
even if it means that I'm alienating people or less people are going to check it out, maybe we can hook them with some of the shorter stuff and they'll want to give the longer songs a chance. Because we alternate. There's songs that are 4 minutes long on that record, and then there's songs that
Yeah.
are 10 minutes long, right? So it's like we kind of do both, but I love it, man. I can't just say, yeah, no, I don't want to do the proggy stuff and I don't want to do the instrumental section. I
Yeah.
don't want to do the themes and all all that stuff. It's like, nah, that's too inherently me. So
Thanks, Jason, for giving us insight on your music and all different projects you're pursuing. And we wish you very best of luck and keep us posted when the new record comes out.
yeah, same. Let me know when you're releasing your stuff.
Definitely check out Jason's music. He's in three different bands, Wraith, Mind Horizon, and Idol Throne. All pretty cool band. So, Jason, last words from you. What you want to say?
Yeah, just thanks for having me. It's a blast. I love talking music. I wish I could do it forever and my favorite thing, right? So I appreciate it. It's good to hear from you. I know, I follow your stuff on social media, but it's great to talk and hopefully we play a show together again at some point. That would be awesome.
Yeah, that would
Never
be
say
awesome.
never.
I mean, the show we played together was one of the best shows we played, and I still have yeah, I mean, you blew us with your shred guitars. I mean, that was awesome.
Yeah, no, it was a great time. Yeah, I still remember that
Yeah.
gig and it was a lot of fun. So yeah, who knows, maybe the stars will align, we'll get the opportunity to do it again.
All
So
right.
maybe supporting the new Fire Garden release, right? That'd be
Yeah.
super cool.
Yeah. All right, Jason. Thanks. Talk to you later.
Thanks, Z.
Yeah.